Can happen, man.
Yep. So I want help with creating a personal brand. I was hoping that you could give me some guidance and some ideas. Just a quick backstory, just so you have some context. I was born in Bogota, Colombia, raised in Los Angeles. I got a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. Currently working as a rocket scientist full-time for a private rocket company in Louisiana.
Awesome.
Yep. Thank you. And I'm also working full-time. Part-time. I'm also a part-time student working on an online master's degree program in astronautical engineering. And everything I've done in my life has been towards trying to achieve my lifelong dream of becoming an astronaut. That's like the ultimate goal for me, right? And that's the only reason why I'm doing my master's degree, because I need to. That's the last requirement I need to complete to be considered to be an astronaut. So, but at the same time, thanks to your videos and the inspiration you've given me, I really want to eventually stop working for someone, right? I want to stop like being tied.
Awesome.
I know I cannot do that for the rest of my life. And thanks to you, like it's almost like a blessing that you just appeared in my life. You've rewired my brain and everything. It's amazing. So I definitely know I want to do a personal brand for myself.
Yeah.
And I have two ideas, and so I wanted to pitch them to you. So to see if you can maybe give me some advice on if they're good or you have any other ideas.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yep. And I considered the things that you said in your videos, like provide value, solve a problem, or show the journey of you solving the problem. Or like,
so you watch the business videos?
Yep. Yeah, I've been watching all of those, and every day to work on my commute, that's what I put on.
Awesome, man. Good.
So I've walked, health, wealth, relationships. I try to consider those three. So the first idea is the one I'm not like sort of looking into anymore, but I want to still say it. So it was to become an educational content creator to teach people about rocket and space exploration, because that's what I'm already passionate about, and that's what I already know. And I've seen some content creators that have made it like in that field, like aviation, talking about space, and there's some big names as well. The issue with that, though, that I've seen is that I don't see that I'm necessarily solving a problem for people, right?
Gotcha.
So like, I don't see a clear business model for it. The second idea, it's more what I'm leaning towards to now, is to become a content creator and build a personal brand around fitness and obtaining my dream physique. I'm not where I want to be yet with my fitness goals, but yeah. I really want to do your idea of showing the journey of going through that transformation and then building a personal brand from that. Because I can clearly see a business model from that. I could eventually become an online coach. It's very clear to me how I can make money from it.
Gotcha.
Yep. So
what about the third one? Is it 2 or 3?
Just two. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
And I really want to get started as soon as possible, but I want to see if you have any other ideas, or what do you think about those two?
So, like I've mentioned before, life is unfair, right? And you should never play fair. If you are a rocket scientist, unless you're extremely passionate about fitness, that is such a high level of expertise that I would rather you experiment and figure out what personal brand you can create from that, because that just gives you so much leverage, right? A personal brand is essentially, yes, you're going to help people solve problems, but the more authority you have, the easier this is going to go. Nobody's going to argue with you of anything if you're a rocket scientist. But if you're going to start from the beginning with fitness, like that's a tougher road to climb. Not saying it can't be done, but man, use your leverage, use your advantages. Like, you are a fucking rocket scientist. Hey, fuck no. Let's see if we can think of something. Maybe you might not start off as a business model, but you start off in the aviation space, just making content around that. And then if you do want to establish a brand of business, you can then pivot because you've already built the name. But to say, okay, I'm a rocket scientist and I'm just going to let that go and just start a fitness journey, I don't know if I agree with that, because that's just so much. That's like being a fucking PhD or a fucking that's like having $100 million company and then saying, you know what, I don't want to make a personal brand around that. I want to make a personal brand around, like that's so much leverage that you're just walking away from. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I personally would start off with something in the aviation space, making content around that. See those big names that you've already encountered.
Yeah.
Right. See what kind of content that you can make, how you can interject yourself in the space. And as you become a brand in terms of like the aviation world, like who knows, maybe you can have your own educational company. You can have a educational like brand about teaching people how to become astronauts, like in a more accessible way. Like what if you create something where people don't necessarily have to go to school to learn how to become an astronaut or even rocket science in general? Like I think there's way more opportunity there than going to fitness.
Wow. Yeah, I had not thought about that. I really thought, because I really was trying to like abide by your framework that you've described in videos about like that you need to provide value, solve a problem. That's the big thing. Like to be able to like make money is solving a problem. And I just couldn't find the solving the problem part in that.
So what we can do is we can, if I still want us to stick with the rocket science and stuff, we got to maybe see how we can use that leverage to get into the space that is the most similar. So which part of wealth, it's probably going to be wealth and health, right? Maybe even wealth. Which part of wealth or which industry can you get into in the wealth space that can help people either learn how to make more money, learn people how to learn. What about your transition? You went from Colombia, you got a job in America, and now you going, like, that's a process. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't really. I mean, I am an immigrant, but I immigrated at a very young age. My parents brought me when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I don't know if I can really like count that as like part of my story. I mean, it is part of my story. It's just, I don't know how.
It's still part of your story. It's still part of your story because you can be the voice of reason, or you can be the beacon of light for people who may have similar aspirations, and you can show them how this can be done.
So you think I should start off making content around just teaching people about space, rocket facts, kind of like the other content creators that I've admire and aspire to become, or if I should just talk about my story in general of where I'm at right now?
You can include both. You can include both. So this is how I'm imagining this, right? So you don't get confused.
Yeah.
If we use our leverage, and even if we start off in aviation, we can use our leverage as a rocket scientist to eventually build a bigger business where we can pick and decide which field we want to get into. So you're coming from a unique position where like you don't necessarily have to go through the grind to establish authority.
Okay.
Your career is the authority. So if you're passionate about, if your dream is to be an astronaut, let's not just throw that away and just go do a fitness brand. Let's see how we can establish ourselves as an authority in this space. And then once we become an authority, we can then decide which business model that we want to pick. At that point, once you become a brand and you've built a bunch of goodwill, you can then say, okay, this is the brand or this is the model that I think makes the most sense. And because now, as a rocket scientist with a personal brand, with a following, I can then pick. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense up to the part of like pick the business.
You're gonna have so much leverage. Oh damn! What happened, my dude? I think he froze. I'm gonna let him come back. Are you there?
Yeah, am I back?
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
So because you have leverage as a rocket scientist and your goal is to become an astronaut.
Yep.
Right. What you can do is you can start making content around aviation based on what you see is already working, but you can interject your story, right? Trying to become an astronaut, like the things that you had to go through, like your story as an immigrant. You can interject those things to start making your content more personable, talking about your journey. And then what's going to end up happening is when you become an astronaut, right? You've had documentation up to this point, and you're already an established rocket scientist. You're going to have so much leverage to where if you have a brand on the side of that, you can say, okay, I want to pick helping people get into the aviation space. I want to start my own coaching program doing that.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
I want to consult companies on how to hire this. Something you can then pick. Then you can you know what? I'm coming from a position of power where I can then decide what I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's making much more sense. So, and even though because becoming an astronaut is very hard. It's one of the most competitive, I guess, job opportunities you could ever have. It's very tough to get in there. And so I know that I'm very realistic with my expectations that it may not happen, right? But I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to give it what I can. So even if it doesn't happen, I can still be creating a personal brand around how you could do that, how you could become.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. You can interject your story because being a rocket scientist is not easy either, right? Last time I checked, anybody could be a rocket fucking scientist. So regardless of whether or not you become a fucking astronaut or not, you can be the fact that you are a rocket scientist is leverage in its own. Right. And then you can interject your story about becoming an astronaut, and whether or not you become an astronaut, which I think you will, you can then decide. But I don't think you should just throw away all this leverage and especially that's your dream. Yeah. To just, I'm just go do fitness and then show people the journey of me becoming a fitness influencer when I'm a fucking rocket scientist. Hell no. We're gonna use that lever. Yeah. Because life is about leverage, right? The more leverage you have, the more you can influence circumstances. You can influence results. Okay. If you're starting off from a position where you already have built that authority, you don't necessarily have to go through the grind to be looked at as a figure of authority. Okay. Because you already did the work to become a rocket fucking scientist. Right. You're going to be taken more seriously. Okay. Okay, that makes much sense. So I mean, at this point, because I've done the work, I'm already rocket scientist. I could, this is the right time for me to start making content. I can't delay this anymore. Exactly. And then you can pick whatever. You're going to have the choice to pick what you want to do in the future. Okay. And so by doing this, because my goal is to eventually be able to leave my 9-to-5, right? And as a being tied to a company, right? So I guess if I just focus making content, through, I don't know how many months or years it takes, at some point, like you said, it will come to the point where I'll be able to pick, and then that will lead me to be able to, I guess, not be with the company anymore, right? Yes. If you establish yourself as a rocket scientist right now, because the biggest play is eventually having choice to create our own brand. Yeah. Right. Right. So we can make content as a rocket scientist based on what's already working, and you can earn money from the platforms in itself. Okay. Where you don't have to work for anybody. And then if you want, before you even decide, let's say at that point, let's say it takes you 6 months, a year to build a brand around aviation and the space industry and all these things, and you become a prominent figure, you're going to be making money from the platforms themselves. Okay. So you can then say, you know what, I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go all in with the whole personal branding thing. Or I want to finish being an astronaut and keep documenting that as part of my personal branding. Okay. Right. You're going to have choice. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. No, this makes so much sense. I'm so glad I talked to you, because if not, I probably would have chosen the fitness and then maybe done the no. That's why I say it's good to always talk to somebody and see what your options are, because a lot of you guys, like I said, have potential that you don't need to become. You don't need to do what everybody else is doing. Like a lot of you guys that are watching this, you already probably are good at something. Don't throw that shit away. Like, fuck no. Don't throw that away. Use that as an advantage, because life is never going to be fair to you. Yeah. And I just realized that the big content creators in the space industry,
a lot of those are not even rocket scientists. They just did it because they love the topic, and they're not actually engineers, like graduated. So I guess I even have more leverage.
Yeah, you go. So now you can take what has worked for them and interject your expertise and have more authority, and then be literally take market share.
Okay.
All right. Listen, if you want some help, man, I'm gonna post a link for you in the YouTube chat. Right. Yep. If you want some help with this, you want some structure, you want me to walk you through this.
Okay.
That's something you're open to. Click the link in the chat, book a call. Let's see if it makes sense for us to work together, bro.
Okay. Thank you so much, Fit. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one.